Hi, this is Dr. Tom McDonagh from Good Therapy SF here in downtown San Francisco. And today I wanted to talk to you a little bit about something we hear on a pretty regular basis, which is called imposter syndrome. So imposter syndrome is this loose kind of pop term that's been around for a little bit, which basically comes down to someone feeling as though they are in a role that they are unqualified for, and somehow they made it through all the obstacles of interviewing and school and academics and everything else that comes along with it. And they feel like for whatever reason they landed in their position and they think they're actually not qualified for it. But for some reason, the rest of the world seems to think that they are. So they can't really figure this out. So that is what we call imposter syndrome. So today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that and how to work with those stressors. So imposter syndrome essentially boils down to two things happening at the same time. The first is black and white thinking, and the second part is a fear of failure. So what do I mean by black and white thinking? Black and white thinking is assuming or thinking things in an all or nothing way. A lot of if-then type statements can be placed into black and white thinking, but essentially it boils down to if I don't do something, then blank. Or if something doesn't happen, then I am blank. And often those blanks are going to be negative or self-criticizing statements. For example, if I don't do something perfectly, then they are going to know that I'm not qualified for the role. And that's where the fear of failure comes into play. Often if people aren't familiar with how to work through failures or receiving types of criticism that are meant to be helpful, people internalize it in an overly negative way, and then they assume that people are actually commenting on their abilities as a person as opposed to just the situation or the project in which they are receiving the critical feedback on. So this is about learning to work with how to work through failure in a more helpful way. So when you combine this type of thinking, this all or nothing thinking, this black and white thinking with a fear of failure, you're going to develop a sense of imposter syndrome. So how do we work with this? The first part is we want to identify the black and white thinking that is happening, and that can come through a variety of cognitive behavioral therapy methods. Usually a thought record is going to be employed, but at the very least we want to help you identify what those all or nothing thoughts are. And then the second part is going to be working with that fear of failure. We want to see what messages you received in life that contribute to this fear of failure. And we want you to work through some of these thoughts that we tend to associate with failure. For example, if I don't do well, then they're going to fire me, is a really common one. So that's kind of what you're going to focus on in therapy if you work with somebody around that. So these are just some skills you kind of pick up here at Good Therapy SF. Again, imposter syndrome is going to be the combination of all or nothing thinking, black and white thinking, with a fear of failure.